We are so glad to have you join us again, and we are so grateful to you for your interest in better health and life, the magic of this life.
Yeah. And last week we talked a lot about food. We love food and all the different ways to use that little puree that I make from the squash and the sweet potatoes and the yams. We're changing gears this week, going back to kind of the mental emotional aspect of life and its relationship with food. And we were talking with a client earlier in the week who wanted to explore this idea. She can get so overwhelmed with the idea that she doesn't really provide for herself. And then she compares herself to her husband and everybody else, and she's kind of low and can kind of feel a little depressed sometimes. And so we've got some noises in the background. I think it's our vacuum was set up and it's kind of shifting. So it was a wonderful exploration about who really provides. You know, who's the provider in your home?
Yeah, it's a really good question when we start to doubt ourselves. And that always happens if we compare ourselves to others.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. And when we do that comparison and we don't feel like we measure up and we're not enough, those feelings, it's not a good feeling. And it can often lead to the cupboard and looking to food to try and shift those feelings. So what we explored with her that was so interesting is looking at the big picture, zooming way out, and really looking at how do we really find provision for ourselves? How is it that we're provided with what we need in our lives? And I've always loved nature and being out in nature. Connie has too. We used to do a lot of backpacking. And what we so love about it is it seems to reflect this kind of abundance and ease of maintaining balance and harmony. It's always so peaceful. Well, it's not always so peaceful, but you can have forest fires, you can have raging storms. It's not always so peaceful, but it seems to so effortlessly always come back to this place of ease and balance, silence, beauty. And so we're looking at how does this apply in our lives regarding our providing for ourselves. In our culture, there's a lot of shoulds and shouldn'ts about being a good provider and what is a good provider and what isn't. And we're, like I say, zooming out and looking at nature and how, let's take a forest, everything in a forest has its role in contributing to the health and the balance and the provision of what's needed for a healthy ecosystem.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it came up to think of her as a little strawberry plant. You know, when we used to go in the backcountry, you'd be hiking on these trails and there would always be all these little strawberry plants along the edges of the path. And of course, the grandeur was this huge forest and mountains and glaciers, and that's what gets your attention. It's kind of the big pieces. But when you take the time to look at the little pieces, those little strawberries, and every now and then you'd find a little ripe wild strawberries
So
about
delicious.
that big.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it.
Right.
They're like concentrated candy. They're so good. And so for some reason, we looked at her as being kind of like the strawberry. And her provider, she looks to her husband. She feels like her husband, he provides everything. And what do I do? And I couldn't take care of myself if I lost my husband. And he's kind of like the big tree. And we were seeing how really what is necessary for that forest to stay in balance and be healthy is simply that everything in the forest do what it's designed to do, be who they are and contribute, engage in ways that use their gifts and talents.
Yeah, I think that's the key is Just we're here to express our gifts and talents in whatever form that takes for us. And the form comes from those inner urges that move us to do this and do that, and give in this way and share in this way.
Yeah, yeah. If you look at nature, well, they don't have a brain like we do, so they don't overthink the situation.
That's a blessing.
You know, as a sapling starts to grow, it naturally leans toward the sun. It has this urge, this kind of biological built-in system to go for the sun, to go for what it needs in a very beautiful way. And I think what Connie's pointing out is that we too get these urges, these little nudges to follow what we're designed to do, to give full expression to who we are. And so we're making the comparison between the strawberry, what it contributes to the ecosystem, and this big tree. And the big trees does seem to produce so much more. You know, I mean, all those leaves and everything compared to the strawberry, it produces a lot more photosynthesis, a lot more nutrients for the tree, for the soil, the oxygen, carbon dioxide. I mean, it does a bigger job, but it's designed to do a bigger job. And
those are its gifts.
Those are its gifts. Yeah. And so it doesn't labor itself to just do what it does. And the little strawberry down below there, it's doing what it does, and it produces a couple of strawberries and has a few leaves and that kind of thing. But it's no less important to the overall functioning of the ecosystem. And so, you know, that's an interesting concept. But then we took it another step further, and we were looking at, well, as much as the tree contributes and as much as the strawberry contributes, are they really providing everything they need? And it was pretty easy to see that little strawberry, well, it can't produce any fruit without pollinators. Can it create pollinators? Does it produce pollinators to pollinate the flowers?
No, it doesn't.
So yeah, it's like, if you break it down, it looks to me like if we just do what we're designed to do, it may not produce a whole lot in terms of the whole world, but it's all we need to do for the whole world to provide what we need. It's like we're foodies, as you know, but to grow all of our own food, I don't think so, especially here in Canada all year round.
Yeah, very true.
And so all that we need to do is small contributions from our side, and the whole ecosystem, the community, the social structure is designed to provide everything that we need, just like a forest. And the key seems to be in our willingness to simply be who we are and engage in life in the ways that we can contribute our gifts and talents.
Yeah, and to be aware of how much is provided for us. We really provide so little compared to the whole, and how many blessings and benefits come to us every moment, like the air we breathe. We don't provide that. We're just so blessed to be here, to have the opportunity to share our gifts and talents, and to love ourselves for exactly how we are, just to be who we are, very naturally.
Yeah, it reminds me of a friend we had who was a practicing Buddhist, and we would have meals with him and his wife at times. And so before the meal, or rather than a prayer, he would do a little mindfulness practice, you might say, and kind of touch on the many people and things that contributed to bringing this simple meal to us.
True.
The farmers, the truck drivers, the sun, the soil, the microbes in the soil. I mean, you know, sometimes it would be quite a while before we were eating. but it was just a reflection of what we're talking about here. So much is designed into the system of how life works to provide for us what we basically need to be happy and to thrive. That isn't on us. But our culture kind of says, oh, this is a good provider. You know, they make so much money and they've got so much to give, and they have accomplished so much in their lives. And we think, oh, that's what we need to do to matter, to really be of value in this life. When in fact, all we have to do is be a little strawberry, because it's a strawberry being a strawberry that makes us happy. It's a tree being a tree that makes us happy. But when the strawberry thinks it needs to produce like a tree, we get into trouble. So be who you are.
Yeah.
And that can lay that foundation for the stability, the ease, and the beauty of life that doesn't produce those feelings that have us reaching for food when we're not hungry. That sense of contentment and well-being, just in being who we are.
In gratitude for all that's given to us all the time. So the recipe today is really yummy. It's my most favorite squash, kabocha. And we made a curry out of it with garbanzo beans. It is yummy. So go to your health food store. They'll have kabocha this time of year. It's a turban squash. And what you want to look for is a bright orange spot. If the orange spot is nice and orange, that means it's probably pretty sweet. And you can eat the skin.
Yeah. The skin's edible and we love it. So
yeah.
It goes in the curry too. No, but isn't there a squash that's called turban squash?
Oh, that I'm not sure.
I think so. It's not actually, if there is a turban squash, it's not a turban squash, but it looks round, you know.
Yeah, like a turban.
Yeah, and it'll be labeled kabocha, K-O-B-H.
K-A-B-O-C-H-A.
Thank you.
K-A-B-O-C-H-A is kabocha.
Kombucha.
And it's the sweetest squash.
Oh, it's the best.
So
It's
good.
sweet, and it has this deep, rich flavor that's just like no other squash. We love everything about it. So enjoy. Thanks for joining us.